to a new episode of PR360. I'm your host, Brett Dice. If you please subscribe to PR360 on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and Amazon Music. Leave a review. It really does help with the rankings. And let me know how I'm doing. But this week, I have Dan Fiehn with me, and he is a COO and is responsible for operational delivery. He's had more than 30 years of experience in operation, technology, leadership, global financial services, including brands like HPOS, LTSB, and Sterling Insurance. And so he has a wealth of knowledge, and we're happy to have him on the show. So welcome to the show, Dan.
Hello, everyone. Hi, Brett. Thank you.
You're welcome. My first question I ask all my guests is, are you a coffee or tea drinker?
Only one answer for me here. I love my morning coffee. I recently discovered coconut latte, and that's become my trusted friend after my morning workouts. So always coffee.
No worries here. I'm a coffee lover myself. So do you have any favorite brands or anything you really, really like to drink?
No, not really. I mean, I'll drink any of them. I mean, in the UK, so Pret is quite popular in London. So, but any latte, as I say, coconut lattes now have become my new friend.
Right. And I gave a brief overview about your expertise. Can you give us a little bit more about your expertise?
Yeah, sure. So, I'm a technology leader, and as you said, I've got over 30 years experience in the mainly insurance industry. I started my career working in a claims department, learning the business, and then probably after about 8 years or so, I moved into IT. So there I've been really lucky. I've managed, I've undertaken a wide variety of roles across the whole of IT. Starting off as a software developer, been a business analyst, project manager. Absolutely love my time. Technology has been very kind to me. In the last 10 years, I've been able to bring all that together. And as you said, I've operated as a CIO for 2 large insurers in the UK. And more recently, I've moved up into the role of a chief operations officer. So not only looking after the IT side of the company, but also the kind of business operation. And today I'm proud and lucky to be the COO for a data science fintech company, and we provide enrichment services to the market. So yeah, really feel blessed. And, my mantra has always been challenge to improve. And it's all about unlocking value in businesses. And yeah, I love what I do.
All right. And we're happy to have you on the show, but we're going to get into it with how do you create, or what is it to create, or what does it take to create a successful digital strategy?
Yeah, I mean, that is a tough question because there's so many facets to a great digital strategy. If I was to boil it down to maybe 3 or 4 key elements, I'd say understanding why you need to change or why you need the strategy is paramount. If you don't really understand, why your company needs it, and your customer journeys and your how it's going to impact your staff, then that I think, and without those solid foundations, it's going to be really tricky. That then translates into really compelling vision that everyone buys into. So you want a statement that resonates with your clients and customers, your staff, something that people can really kind of grab onto and get excited about. And then you need a clear set of defined goals, that span across that strategy, and then have an ability to measure progress. There's no point in having a strategy and having goals if you can't keep track of if you're kind of on the right lines. So I would say those 4 things, understanding why, having a really compelling vision, clear set of goals, and then being able to measure, probably the key pillars of a great digital strategy.
I mean, that even goes to talking about more of how do leaders create the vision for the company's digital strategy? Because I know that we can get to the nitty gritty, but sometimes we got to look above and go like, okay, how are we going to do this? How are we going to do this each year? How can a leader create this vision for the digital marketing strategy that basically everybody else can at least buy into?
Yeah, I mean, well, you're absolutely right, Brett. So you need to be able to take a holistic view of, where your company's going and all of the, yeah, the direction of travel. I mean, that is really important. As you say, most strategies will span multi years. So to have that compelling vision that can kind of take you on that journey, yeah, you need to be looking into the future. Um, it's not a small undertaking by any means. Otherwise, it would just be a standalone project that you could do quite easily. Um,
No, right. And I mean, for leaders, how do they successfully sell their own PR vision to their employees? Because you could have the vision, you could have everything going, but if the employees are like, yeah, that's a no for me. Like, how do you get them on board, basically?
yeah. Okay. So I think, well, firstly, I guess giving a bit more of a fuller answer to your previous question, your colleagues and your staff and employees, they need to know how the strategy is going to impact them, good and bad, and they're going to know what changes are coming and when. To get them really bought into it, you need to communicate regularly, and you're ultimately you're selling the reason why people need to kind of get behind it, and make it a success. So the communication needs to be frequent, but across many different channels, and so you might create small engaging videos that kind of bring to life what you're trying to do. You might design posters which are kind of like a postcard from the future, which you know graphically illustrate kind of what the end is going to look like. I think it's really important to get regular feedback and comments from your colleagues, and then where possible, that feedback needs to be shown to be shaping the direction of travel, so they feel that they've got a voice and yeah, they're involved. You're taking them on the journey.
Gotcha. And I mean, when we're talking about once we do the strategy, once we kind of like figured it all out, and then all of a sudden it just isn't going well or is just a little bit off, what should leaders do to look for to change or pivot? What should they look for that specifically they can tweak or anything like that? Because I'm pretty sure a lot of times, sometimes it's just a little tweak here and here. But what are some things that they should look out for if something's not going well?
Yeah, so this is a common problem, and it's something that I've actually written about, Brett, because I think so many strategies fail to deliver, value for their companies. Um, so there's lots of things to look out for. So we've talked about some of them. So having a poor vision, office politics can be, that can be a barrier to, if there's a lack of trust. So if your staff and colleagues don't trust, and there isn't that empathy, that can be a root cause of problems. Having a poor implementation strategy, the timing of the changes. If everyone in the company is maxed out and overworked, if there's no sympathy to that, that having that can cause issues. Not celebrating successes early, and not having lack of a reward structure. They can all lead to things that undermine, um, you know a successful strategy. Um, so most all of us will go through like an acceptance curve. So initially we might feel quite angry, or we might go into denial when there's changes happening around us, and leaders need to kind of acknowledge that and help staff and through that stage of kind of denial. So our communication at that time might be quite different and very supporting. That will then move on where we get more into more confusion, but gradually people start accepting the changes. So again, you can change the messages that you're communicating to your staff, and then you know, in the fullness of time, then there'll be a new confidence in what's going on, and more people will get behind it. So we all go through this kind of like acceptance curve, and we all go through it at different speeds. So some people will get there really quickly. They'll understand what we're trying to do as a company and a group of people, and they get on board really quick. Other people, it may take some time to kind of get their heads around it and then understand and agree. And some people may even get just stuck in denial and the anger stage for a long, long time. So having a strategy as a leader for the different stages and and then the different types of communication that you'll need just to support people through that, I think is really key.
It almost sounds like you almost need a crisis plan for your digital strategy, just in case more internal, just in case your employees are just like, nah, I'm good. I don't need this. It seems like it's almost something akin to like a crisis plan for your digital strategy for leaders.
Yeah, I think you should plan. You should always have a plan B. Um, you know, if you look at the statistics of digital transformations and digital strategies, they have a high failure rate. So it's not unusual for this to happen. So I think if you go in with your eyes open, um, and that's why it's so important to have a really compelling vision that people really get inspired by, and you've got that communication strategy that you can pivot that strategy to counter any kind of resistance you get along the way, and you're providing the right support. But yeah, I think crisis management probably is a good way of putting it. Definitely.
Gotcha. And then how can leaders stay ahead of emerging digital trends? Because, like you said, there's high failure rates of this and of just new trends are coming in all along, and probably it's probably to do with higher failure rates as well. So, how can leaders stay ahead of the game when it comes to emerging trends in digital marketing?
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, there's lots of sources that I would tap into. So I think going to relevant conferences with peers can be a very good one because everyone's um, looking to solve the same problem. So I find that can be very valuable. I've set up Google Alerts, so in terms of researching, I get um, every day like a digest of lots of different blogs and articles that are relevant. If you really specifically set up your Google Alerts, that can be very good. Reading white papers, social media can be really good. Twitter, if you follow the right people, there's a lot of good content on there that again will help you just stay ahead and spot trends as they emerge.
Gotcha. And I, I mean, for you, it's that would RSS feeders like Feedly also help as well as to pick and choose which ones you want to do? They also have a list too. Is something like that helpful for emerging trends?
Yeah. So anything. So I think, yeah, I think that tops up. Yeah, and then just following. Someone years ago told me, you should be thinking about how your peers in a larger organization are acting. So they're good people to mimic. So if you if you dial into what your peers are doing, and often they write good blogs as well, and podcasts like yourself, there's lots of good material out there. um, and once you set it all up, it's just about then putting the filters in so you're not overwhelmed with kind of content, and because that in itself can be a challenge.
And should PR pros partake in these emerging trends and figure it out like firsthand, or should it just be more of just a bird's eye view for leaders? I'd probably say, but a bird's eye view of, okay, this is what's going on, type of a thing.
Well, probably a combination of both. So, in my experience, having a small R&D or innovation team where you can try some of this stuff firsthand and learn lessons directly, if you can have that, that is really powerful. You might not be able to you might not be able to kind of create that, but yeah, having hands on, nothing beats that because you learn you can learn really quickly. It's good reading about it, but the best way is to kind of learn directly in my experience.
And then should PR pros emerge or basically bring in all the new trends into their digital marketing strategy to have a well-rounded one? Is that what's going to help it? Or should a lot of times you be like, well, I don't know about this. Maybe we should wait off for a couple of years and see how big this trend is going to be. Because sometimes trends like really come and go, and it's like, oh, okay, that didn't last very long. Or like something like drop in, drop out audio. Like every social media is trying to do one now since Clubhouse has been so successful. So how should they go about implementing this into their digital strategy?
Yeah, that's really good. So that would depend, Brett, on really on the risk appetite of your organization. So I think some companies that I've worked, having a rounded strategy has suited them very well. So as new stuff comes up, the demographic that their client base, being on the cutting edge has served them very well. But as you say, it's quite high risk, and you not everything turns to gold. So you have to remember, you have to bear that in mind. Other companies I've worked to have been slightly more risk adverse and may do more pilots around some of the emerging tech. So maybe just target a specific audience, smaller audience, like a subset of their client base, to try stuff, friendly. Sort of client base where they can get the feedback and they know that it's a kind of more of a testing innovation style, and then have a more of a process for how that emerging tech eventually makes it into their mainstream offering. So I think it all comes down to risk appetite.
Hmm. And let's say you're at one of those companies that are like, we don't like these new trends very much. We wait. Is there a way to convince basically leaders above you, if you're a leader of like the marketing or PR department? Is there a way that's to convincing them like, look at it, this one can actually work for us, even though we're more conservative about our approach. This one's been around for a while, or something like that. Is there a way to convince your higher ups about that, or is it just let's just go with what's tried and true, basically?
Well, some of the things in the past I've done, Brett, that's been quite successful is actually try out some of the emerging technology on the company itself. So using some of these tools as a way of communicating internally to show, you know, like improved engagement, or so rather than so often once you're learning, but also when people see it firsthand, um, that can be, the most powerful thing. So rather than just, yeah, so I think you need to be challenging the status quo and pushing the boundaries all the time. You just need to find the right scenario where you can do that, kind of in safe harbor, but then the powers that be can then see it actually, for themselves, and then they can make the judgment call. So with a lot of it, you're trying to create shareholder value, so you need to show your shareholders the options that they have to create more value than they have today. So it's just creating the right kind of frameworks that you can do that, and each company is slightly different. But if I've found in the past where there's resistance from certain quarters in the organization, I'll look to pivot and then do something really cool internally with the team, and it might be the IT team or it might be a business unit, to sort of demonstrate the potential.
Hmm. And so what I'm hearing is basically start small, then improve with the numbers for the higher ups, and then be like, we should do this company wide for a strategy.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think if you're not certain and there's a high amount of risk, the more that you can de-risk it, I think the better. And also you can play around with it, and then your initial learnings, you may actually pivot at that point, and you may say, well, actually, now we know that we wouldn't do it quite like that. We would do it more like this. So I think small iterations, learning quickly is really important.
Gotcha. And then fun question for you. If you could get rid of any annoying digital strategy technique, what would it be?
Well, um, that's quite tough. Well, if it was just me, it would be email. So anything on email, just over probably like most people, just overrun with it, and I find it's more of an interruption rather than a kind of yeah. I know email has its place, and it can be really good, but for me personally, the less emails, the better.
Do you prefer more like the Slack and that type of communication tool, or do you still prefer email?
Yeah, and then yeah, Slack, and then we use a lot of Teams. I find it just seems to be a bit more natural, and now that we're working from home slightly more, it seems less intrusive. Whereas email seems a chore, and but maybe it's just I'm getting a bit old, Brett, and I need to get with the times of it. But yeah, if I was to choose, just me personally, email would be the one that I would. Yeah,
All right. Hey,
I would get rid of.
it's your preference. And if it's annoying, it's annoying.
I'd to get rid of email and I'd drink more coffee. There we go.
Sounds good to me. And any final thoughts for listeners?
Well, no, I mean, it's an exciting time to be in technology. It's as you've rightly said, things are changing really quick. There's new techniques and stuff emerging all the time. I feel, very privileged and blessed to have had 30 years in technology, and I can't even begin to imagine what the next 30 years will be like. But I would say, like, there's an opportunity if we really challenge the way things work and the status quo. We can all make a really positive, lasting difference. So I think to harness that energy and excitement and then apply it to our businesses, I think, it's a really exciting time. So be bold would be my final thought.
All right. That's a good final thought. But thank you, Dan, for joining PR360 and sharing your knowledge.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. And thank you for having me. Absolute pleasure.
You're welcome. And thank you for listening to PR360. As always, please subscribe to PR360 on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and Amazon Music. Leave a review. It really does help with the rankings and let us know how we're doing. And join us next week as we talk to another great thought leader in the PR industry. All right, guys, stay safe, be bold, as Dan has said, and see you next week. Later.